Morning, everybody. As we go today, 25th day of Adar, we go to today's Tuesday, we go to the third reading, the portion of Parshas Re'eh, holding on chapter 12, verse number 29. When God, your God, will cut down the nations, that your nation that inhabit the land that you are entering, in order to dispose them, and you shall dispose of them, and you shall dwell in their land. Be very careful to not imitate them. After you destroy them, from your face, you shouldn't ask about their gods. To say, how did these nations worship these gods as Lakehem, their gods, and I'll do the same. Now she says, Tinokesh, uncle is translated to the sense of moikesh, a snare. But I say that it's not particular to translate to take exact wording, for we never find the letter nun used with the word yokesh, even as a root letter that is sometimes dropped. However, in the word connotation is rushing and knocking, we do find the nun. His knees were knocking, nakshan, against each other. Here too, benti nokish achreim, says that you must not rush after them, to be drawn to their deeds. That's the meaning of the word. Not to be sneered, but don't run after that. A similar case, a creditor will chase Yinokesh after all he has, after all that he has. The Torah curses the wicked person to have many creditors who will search and chase after his money. After they're annihilated before you, meaning since you see how I destroyed them from before you, you ought to consider why these nations were destroyed, and understand that it's because of the depraved acts they committed. You too must not act likewise. Don't run after their depravity, so that the others not come and destroy you. How they served, since the Torah has previously imposed punishment only for worship idols by slaughtering animals to them, burning animals to them, sacrificial offerings, pouring libations to them, prostrating them before them, as written, whoever sacrificed to an idol must be put to death. Worship is permitted only God alone, implying that the death penalty for idolatry applies only to similar acts of worship, service that was done in the Beis Hamikdash. It now teaches us that if it's a usual manner of serving a particular idol is though a different act, such as the faith, there was a certain way to serve the Baal Pe'er. You used to go to the bathroom, that in front of it. That was the way they serviced it. Or throwing, there was a certain idol they used to throw stones at, Markulis. So you might say, what's about me? I'll throw stones at it. I'll have my mind why I'm throwing stones at it. This is considered worship. It tells you no. If you go to the Markulis, God forbid, and you throw stones at it, since that's the way the worship is done, then that is a worship of Avodah Zarah. This is considered worship. The one who does it is liable to death penalty. The conscience for slaughtering or burning libation or prostrating is liable, even it's not the normal way. So if I went to if somebody goes to the Markulis and he brings a carbon, then it doesn't make a difference. Markulis, that was not the service of the Markulis. They used to throw stones at it. But since this was done in the Beis Hamikdash to sacrifice an animal, so you would be doing the Aveda even if you did it in the Markulis. Verse 31, you shouldn't do these things to God. Because they perform all for the deities every act that God considered an abomination. Because the nations, even brought their own children as a sacrifice. They used to burn their children. They would burn their children as a worship to the idol. And therefore, the Eibishter hates every kind of idol, any kind of idol worship, just like he hates taking a child, and burning him for the sake of the idol. He hates throwing stones at the idol. That's the worship. He hates the worship of idol worship. Now she says, Gam lerabis, even indicates, it included the fathers and the mothers. Rabbi Akiva once said, I once saw how a non-Jew tied up his father in front of his dog that was an idol, and it devoured him. His dog was his idol, so he tied up his father, and he let the dog eat him up. Rabbi Akiva said, I saw this with my own eyes, because that's the way they used to have this worship. Chapter 13, verse number 1. It's called all that I command you shall do. Last is the you be careful to do. You shouldn't add, you shouldn't subtract. Now it says, whether you think it's light, whether you think it's severe. Tishmeru lases, you must be careful to do. This expression adds a passive commandment to the active commandments mentioned in the passage. Again, leisasa, the concept of a negative, adding a negative commandment on a positive. For whatever it says Yishomer is stated, it denotes a passive. It comes to tell Yishomer, be careful from either doing it or be careful for not doing it. The only difference is you don't get a punishment. You don't get punishment if you don't for lack of doing something. So therefore, if you don't do something, so you didn't do the mitzvah, then automatically you did an aveda, but you don't get a punishment because you didn't do a ma'aseh. You only get a punishment when it's on an action. So even though by the lack of action you did a leisasa, you still don't get punishment because you didn't do an action. Leisasiv, Rashi said this before, you're not allowed to add, meaning you're not allowed to add 5 portions on the tefillin, you're not allowed 5 plants in the lulav, you're not allowed to add 8 another strand in your tzitzis. Verse number 2. If there will arise amongst you a prophet, a chaylam or a dreamer, and he's going to give you a mess, he will show you a miracle. He's going to prophesy and he's going to actually show you a miracle. Now she says, and he gives you a sign in the heavens, like which stated regarding Gideon. He performed a sign for me, and it says, let only the fleece be dry, but on the entire ground there was dew. So he had the capability of doing miracles. A meifes, or he gives you a marvel. So a nes is in the heavens, a meifes is on the earth. Nevertheless, do not listen to him. If you ask, if so, why does the Eibishter give him the authority to perform a miracle? The answer is, the Eibishter gives free choice, and he wants to make sure that you're going to do something because you choose, not because of a miracle, because you believe in God. But and he's going to give you this sign in the heavens, as it's written, and there shall be signs that Rashi says for the seasons. On the earth, either will we do, or fleece only, or upon all the ground. Even so, you shall not listen to him. But if he says, why then does the Eibishter blessed be give him the power of performing signs? So he brought it before this, that we said the Rashi already. He brought it before already. I don't know why in the English he brought the whole Rashi already before. And the signs and the marvels in which he spoke to you takes place, saying, so he says, I'm going to show you a miracle. And because I showed you a miracle, let's go worship an idol. And this is not something that the Eibishter said, there were Nevi'ah Sheker. That was a big debate. When Rashi brought up Eliyahu Hanavi, that was the story of Eliyahu Hanavi. He was fighting against 400 false prophets. 400 Jewish false prophets. And so this happened in history, that they came about false prophets that came about and pushed it and simply tried to get the Jews to worship idols in the prophecies. So if a prophet comes to you and tells you, let's go against the Torah, do not listen to that prophet. To that one who dreams. This was Shabtai Tzvi. Also the same story. Because the Eibush is trying to test you out to see if you truly love God. With all your heart and your soul. You should only follow God. And you only fear of Him. It's right to Shmoiru, and His commandments you should follow. And you heed to the voice of God. And you should serve the Eibush to Beited Bakum. Now she says in Beited Shmoiru, the law of Moshe Rabbeinu. Teres Moshe. Kel Tishmoyu, the voice of legitimate prophets. Veisavedu, and worship Him in the Beis Hamikdash. Ubeited Baku, adhere to His ways, carry acts of kindness beyond what is required by the law, because you do it because God does it. Bury the dead and visit the sick, thus as the Holy One, blessed be He does. And that prophet or that dreamer, Yoma should be put to death. Because he spoke depravely against God. I took you out of the land of Egypt. We took you out of slavery. He wants to push you away from the way, which the Eibush wants you to follow. You should get rid of evil from your midst. Rashi is a sada, something that is removed from the world. For it never exists. It was never created. I never instructed him to go against the Torah. I would never instruct anybody to tell them that we're going to mevatel tefillin. You don't going to put tefillin anymore. To redeem you from the house of slaves, even if his only claim upon you is that he redeemed you, is enough. The Eibush doesn't have to give you more than that. For your brother, the son of your mother, your son or your daughter, your wife who lies in your embrace, or your friend, is like your soul. If they're going to go and they're going to go, there's a guy who's going to come up and say, let's go quietly, let's start worshiping idols. Let's go out and serve other gods. Now she says, incites you. The word hasasa means nothing else but inciting. As it says, if God incited you against you. Achicha, it's from your father, Ben Eminecha, the son of your mother, your brother from your mother, Cheikecha, your wife, who lies in your bosom and is attached to you. Similarly, we find Mecheika Aretz, and from the bosom of the earth, from the base adjacent to the earth. Ashek and Ashecha, as dear to you as your own soul. Who's that? This refers to your father. Scripture is specific, those who are dear to you. And all more does apply to others. Basei said, what does it mean in the secret? Over here the Torah talks about commonly occurs. For he who incites others to sin generally speaks only in secret. Similarly, King Solomon says regarding those who incite to sin, in the twilight, as the day darkens, in the black of the night. Not going to openly go. It's quietly. Which neither you nor your forefathers have known. Such an idea should be greatly shameful for you, since even the other nations do not abandon the traditions handed down to them by their fathers. Yet this person tells you to forsake that which your fathers have handed down to you. amongst the deities of the people around you. Those that are close to you, those that are far from you. From the side of the earth, the other side of the earth. Why does the Torah specify those are near and far? Torah only means to say, from the nature of these deities worshipped nearby, you can infer the nature of those far away. Just as you see those worshipped nearby have no substance, those far away likewise have no substance. Say artists from the end of the earth, this refers to the sun and the moon and all the hosts of heaven who travel from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. They say, you must not love them. You don't love him, this prophet, and you're not allowed to listen to him. Or this insider, not a prophet, this is an insider. You should not hearken to him. You should have no pity on him. You should have no mercy on such a person. You should not cover up on him. Pekadus, it's not Pekadus. A movement of Pekadus that will throughout history, those that are haters, self-hating Jews. We're not talking about the time myself, to people trying to incite people to go against God. Later, you must not show any desire for him. You must not love him, since it says you must love your fellow as yourself. Tell you to come tell, no, this person you're not allowed to love. You're not allowed to hearken to him. When he pleads for his life, for forgiveness, you should know how to have any kind of compassion. You must not have pity on him. Since it says you must not stand by and see your fellow's blood being shed. Over here, you're not allowed to have pity on this person. Have mercy. Do not argue to exonerate him. You're not allowed to cover up on him. If you know something that would incriminate him, you're not allowed to remain silent. You must kill this person. You must be the first hand against him in his death. And let everybody else's hand be later. But your hand needs to be first. You must kill him. If he left the court exonerated, bring him back. If there's a cause to incriminate him. If he left the court condemned, do not bring him back. Your hand should be the first. The obligation to kill him develops upon the one who is attempted to incite, and only if he does not die by the hands must he die by the hands of others. As it says, and afterwards the hands of other people. You should pelt him with stones and he shall die. Because it's sought to lead you astray from God, which brought you from the land of Egypt. Verse 12, the rest of the Jewish people should realize this, and they should see this, and they should see it and hear it, and they should be afraid. They should have fear. There shouldn't be another person who comes out and does this evil thing. Now we go to the law of Ilan Edachas. The whole city goes and worships idols. If you hear that people in one of your residential cities that every God has given to you, hear that there's a city called Ilan Edachas. Now she says this excludes Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is never a city that designated for residents. That's where the Kahanim live there. And the Kahanim didn't have a chayil. They were just given the place to live. They were not like even the Leviim that were given a city. Kahanim were not given anything. And they lived in Yerushalayim, which they're not called a city. We say, Yotzo Anoshim, men of unfaithful have gone forth. Verse 14, Yotzo Anoshim b'nei Belial, men of unfaithful have gone forth. Mikebecha from amongst you. And they led the inhabitants of the city go astray. That the whole city got together. And they said, we're going to turn the city into an idol worshiping city, which you do not know. So now she says it's an interesting word, the word anoshim. So even if it's only the men and not the women, B'nai Belial, those who have the yoke who threw the yoke of God off of them. Yeshvi Iram, but not the inhabitants of another city. Our sages drive here that the city cannot become subject to the law of Ir Hanidachas. So when I was going to underline the Hebrew over here. Ir Hanidachas. Now again, this is a law in the Torah, Ir Hanidachas. I don't know if this ever happened in history that there was an Ir Hanidachas. I didn't Google it, so I can't tell you, but I don't remember ever learning that there was a situation of a Ir Hanidachas. So we're going to go into this law of Ir Hanidachas, a city, an adulterous city, and it's a interesting law. And but again, I know there was in history, and it's history the concept of a false prophet and people that incited people to do sins. But I don't know if there was such a thing as a city that went out, a city itself. But here is the law. So it's called the Ir Hanidachas, an adulterous city, which has a special law. It's a different law than a singular person or even half of the city. We'll soon see. But the verse number 15, and you're going to go and inquire and investigate, question the witnesses, and it's found out to be true. That this abomination was committed in your midst. It is a city in an idachas that are going against God. So first what Rashi says, from here, from the many terms used, v'darashta, v'chakarta, v'sha'alta. So you have all these words. We learn that there's 7 investigation questions you must be asked. There are hundreds of questions you might ask a witness. There needs to be 7 basic questions. Here are 3: inquire, investigate thoroughly. The term v'sha'alta, question, is not counted. Since examination relates additional details that arrive from here. Elsewhere it says v'darshu hasheitim heitiv, and the judges must investigate thoroughly, donating 2 questions. And yet another pasuk it says v'darashta heitiv, investigate thoroughly, also donating 2. So it makes up totally 7. Our sages implied an Alexander Shava. So the Chacham and the Gemara says we put all these 3 psukim together because they have Gzeira Shava, they have a similar word in all these 3 psukim, and that is Heitiv. V'darashta, v'chakarta, v'sha'alta, Heitiv. So we have all this word expressed in the 3 different verses, and now they have Gzeira Shava, and that's how the halacha says that there is 7 different basic questions chakidus. So if you have done the witnesses well, you have to strike all the inhabitants of that city by the sword. And then you have to destroy everything in the city. You have to simply destroy everything in the city. And all their animals, even you have to destroy everything that's in that city. If it's unable to put them to death in a manner prescribed for them, kill them in any other way. Now verse 17. Then you have to take everything, all the spoils of the city. You have to gather it into the center of the city, to empty out all the houses from everything that it has, and burn it. You have to burn everything of the city. You have to burn everything and all those things. You're not allowed any hana, any kind of pleasure from this city. Not only everything has to be burnt in the city, but also you're not allowed to live in the city anymore. The city becomes a ghost town. So here we have the ghost towns. If in America there's places ghost towns. Here we have the ghost town in Edsel, a city in a again. I don't know if there was such a in history in an Edachas. There's too many. If you go learn the Gemara, there's too many things that have to be for in an Edachas. L'shmoy b'shvili. That's what we bring. Nothing that is doomed to destruction may remain in your possession. Man Yosher Hashem Achein Ape, so that the reason is that you don't want to have anything left in the city, that God should come back from his anger that a city, an entire city of the Jewish nation went against him. And he will have compassion, he will be and he'll multiply like he swore to your fathers. So that will return refers to Hakesaka, that you should totally strike down. For whoever idolatry is practiced in the world, God displays anger in the world. Verse 19, because you'll hearken to the voice of God, Lishmer is called mitzvahs, to listen to do all the to be careful in all the commandments, which I command you today, Lasis Hayasha Be'ein Hashem, to do what is proper in the eyes of God. Pretty heavy. Okay. We go now to the Tanya. We're holding the 8th letter of the Alter Rebbe. 20 for the 25th day of Av. So we go back to the pasuk says, "Zeireya tzedakah it's matzmiach yeshuas." It's written, "He sows tzedakah, causes deliverance to spout forth." It's another pasuk. Before he says Zeireya tzedakah, brings about the revelation of truth. We have another pasuk. Zeireya tzedakah is one who sows tzedakah, matzmiach yeshuas, causes deliverance. Tzedakah. So we have tzedakos first of all. Here it says plural, tzedakos. The plural for a form of tzedakah can mean both acts of righteousness and acts of charity. So tzedakos is in general plural, milas chasadim, because there are many ways to do tzedakah, not only money. So also through acts of kindness is also tzedakah. Ma shekasav zriya. That, first of all, that the word zriya, sowing, to sow. The mitzvah tzedakah, when it comes to the mitzvah tzedakah, that we use the word zeireya. Pasuk as written in another pasuk, ziru lachem l'tzedakah, sow yourselves for tzedakah, and reap according to the measure of chesed. So zeireya, so it's some kind of a concept of sowing when it comes to tzedakah. Yuvam b'mashal Rabbi Seinu Zachein L'Baracha will be understood according to the teachings of our sages. Rabbi Lezer, the Gemara says, Rabbi Lezer, Yav Frutulani, Rabbi Lezer would give a penny to a poor man, V'hod matzli, and then he would go daven. And he based it on a pasuk, Ani b'tzedek, that I, with righteousness, echsa panecha, I will see your face. So I only can see God's face, so to say, if I do righteousness. Pirush, this means the reason prayer is deemed to sing the face of God. The reason why this is attained by professing prayer with charity is kigil elakusis butter. So the Alter Rebbe is going at a different concept, more deeper concept in the pasuk. Ani b'tzedek echsa fanecha, that I only can see God, echsa fanecha, that the only way I can see God, to gaze upon the face of God, is ani b'tzedek, is if I give tzedakah. So I know that it's the only way I do see God, through davening, through prayer, but it needs to be prefaced through tzedakah. Because the manifestation of divinity, which is revealed in the thought of man and his devotion during prayer, from each person according to his measure, is granted to man by the way of divine charity. So that's why maybe we don't see the spirituality, because it's a charity. That we have a revelation of godliness and davening is a tzedakah. The Eibishter gives us a tzedakah. Is a concept of tzedakah. And as it says, the charity, the loving kindness of God is from the world to the world, is those who fear Him, those who come to pray to Him in the right way. that this light of God, this infinite light of God, which shines in the upper worlds, in a great revelation, in a manifestation, a higher, in a very strong way, and because of this unbelievable revelation, the upper worlds, they're totally bottled, they're nullified, they all consider as nothing. They're all absorbed in the light of God. These higher worlds are the chambers, with the angels, and the souls that are in these places. Which is brought down in the Zohar. The Zohar gives the names of each Heichel in Gan Eden according to their place. And it's these levels are alluded to in the davening, which the rabbis of the great assembly put together. But ultimately, this light that is brought down to these upper worlds ultimately shines down on this world. But who does it shine down upon? On those who fear God and meditate upon His name. Meaning, those who desire to worship Him in the service of the heart, which is tefillah, which is prayer. As it's written, Hashem Yagia Choshki, verse says, and God will enlighten my darkness. Even this world, which is so lowly, that godliness is generally not manifested, God will lighten it up. God will be my light. So the descent and the illumination downward to this world is called the kindness of God. Though this illumination is going down to respond to the divine service of a Jew, it outshines it out of proportion. So even the Yireh Hashem, they're still human beings, and they're still people. But through their avodah, through their service, they can bring out a godly revelation. This world is a chesed. This is a kindness. This is God's kindness that a Jew, through his service, can bring about this revelation. Which chesed in general is called water. As the Gemara says, why is chesed compared to water? Because it descends from a very high place and it comes to a very low place. So God's kindness is drawn down through man's arousal and initiated from below. It is thus the coin that one gives a pauper, that grants the gift to give it, beholding God's face. Can you imagine? The Gemara says, wow, through my tzedakah, I see the face of God. How much tzedakah do I need to give to be able to see the essence of the revelation of godliness? Comes Rabbi Eliezer and says, Yav pruta la'ani. That's the beauty of the Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer Yav pruta. He didn't give $1 million to the ani. He gave a pruta. He gave 2 pennies to the ani. Pruta is a penny. Yav pruta li'ani v'hadamase. Because it's not a tit for tat. The Eibishter's chesed for our action is a chesed. The Eibishter's response to our action is not a reward. Oh, you gave a penny, so I'll give you the worth of a penny. I'll give you what the revelation of God, and this is a penny. No, the Eibishter says no. I'm giving you Ein Sof. I'm giving you a concept revelation of God, which is far, far beyond the worth of a penny. But a Yid should realize that that's what happens. Yid gives tzedakah. A Yid gives tzedakah. It does a simple act. He's not giving $1 million, not giving everything that he has. He's a pruta. He's a penny. And through that penny, his He has the power to see he has the power to bring about a revelation of God in this world. So that's the beholding the God's face, the internal aspect of godliness during prayer. In this way, man's kindness and tzedakah elicits God's kindness and tzedakah. We're not trying to get a response to my kindness. Not like looking when I do a kindness to you, you're going to give me back a kindness, and I hope it's going to be to the kindness that I gave to you at least. No. When I do a kindness for the Eibishter, I do a Maaseh tzedakah, I'm gonna bring about a revelation of godliness, which is far beyond my simple little act of tzedakah. And the truth is that Yirei Hashem, those that are fear God, those that are holy people, as Yaakov Avinu said, "Katonti mikol achsadim." Even I am a tzaddik. I do everything that's right. It's what is in comparison to the chsadim that the Eibishter does to whatever I've done? Nothing. It's no comparison. Therefore, I'm not coming to you because I'm such a tzaddik and I'm such a righteous person and I've overcome my challenges. I'm coming to ask a chesed of the Eibishter because of a chesed of the Eibishter. The Eibishter should give me a chesed, not in comparison to what I've given, to what I've done, but it should be from the kindness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that completes the Tanya for today. What a beautiful Tanya. Today is the 25th day of the month. And the Tillim of the day is the first part of chapter 119. First half of chapter 119, from the letter Aleph to the letter Mem, you do the chitas of the day. The Rebbe writes in the Yom Yom for the 25th day of Av, Menachem Av, writes in the name of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes, my father writes, father meaning the Frierdiker Rebbe, his father is the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, writes in a letter, I heard in the name of our holy fathers, means the Rabbeim, that also when a daughter is born, we have to say the words to Torah. May her parents bring her up to Torah, to marriage, and to good deeds. This is based on the statement of our sages. How do women earn merit? By seeing that their children go to study Torah, that their husband go to study Torah in the hall, and by waiting for their husbands to return. So women are not obligated to the same way that men are obligated in Limud HaTorah. But women receive not only from the Torah that they learn, but they receive from the Torah that their husbands, that they give the time for their husband to sit and learn Torah. Or they influence their children to learn Torah. So they get a double blessing. And therefore, we say to a girl, L'Torah, even though when we say to a boy, L'Torah, his obligation, L'Torah, is much more, so to say, the aspect of himself learning Torah, he has a greater obligation than a woman that has other obligations, but still, the woman receives her reward not only from the time that she takes for learning Torah, but also from the learning of the Torah of her husband and her children. And that's the Yom Yom of today. I want to wish you all a wonderful and beautiful day. I want you to realize also that